Tonight I'm going to make tortellini with a cream sauce. And I'm going to make the cream sauce myself from scratch, and I'm going to tell you here and now that if you ever think about buying those jarred Alfredo sauces from the store, don't. They're garbage. They're really not worth the money you spend on them. What I'm going to show you here is an easy sauce that you can make yourself, flavor up whatever way you want, and have a better sauce than what you would get in those jars. So we're starting with my saucier, which is a nice pot with slightly curved corners at the bottom, very deep pot. And I'm going to be using a ball whisk. Actually, I don't think it's called the ball whisk. Actually, this is a whisk that has sticks coming out of it, and instead of having the whisk curve around like they normally do, there are little rubber balls at the end of this. And the reason I use this whisk is because it helps break up the lumps in the sauce. You can use a regular whisk, or hey, if you don't have a whisk, you can also use a fork, but this is my favorite tool to use. So I am going to start by turning the heat on under my pot. Okay, and now I'm turning down the heat. And I'm going to throw in half a stick of butter. And it's a little less than half a stick, but a half a stick or so works really well in this sauce. And there we go. And I'm going to use my whisk here to just move that butter around in the pan. Make sure all the pan gets coated. And just kind of make sure it comes off the whisk here. There we go. And that's the nice thing about this whisk too, is I can just squeeze the tips together by pinching them. There we go. Butter's all melted. Lovely. And here I have about, I'd say, a half a cup of sliced garlic, not chopped, but sliced. And I just poured that right into my butter. I'm going to turn the heat down here because it's bubbling quite aggressively already. And I'm just softening this garlic up a little bit. So I feel with the whisk as I'm hitting the garlics, and it feels kind of like pebbly texture in there. I just want to make sure that that pebbly texture goes away a little bit. And I think it's called the translucent stage for the sighted people. But it doesn't need to quite reach that stage. You just want it to be nice and soft. And I'm just going to reach over here. I've pre-measured out a 1/4 cup of flour. And I literally just toss it into the pot, making sure it all comes out of my little cup. And stir. And I'm just holding the long handle of this pot so that I don't knock the pot askew. And the smell coming off this right now is garlicky, but it's also a little bit of a nutty smell from the flour. Oh, it's absolutely delicious. And all I need to do here is just make sure that all that butter gets absorbed by the flour, and it's doing that very nicely. And there's a very thick paste in the bottom of the pot right now. And you can feel it with the whisk. You kind of stir around the pot and you come across this dense, muddy area, and I'm just stabbing that with my whisk. All right, our sauce is almost done. So I'm going to turn on the pot of water in the background here and grab some milk. And I never measure the milk, but it's about 2 cups worth that I put in. And I am literally putting it in cold into the pot. And that's really important, because if you put it in cold, the flour absorbs it evenly. If you put it in warm or in stages, it will lump up. So every single step of the way here, we're trying to stop lumps in the sauce, because coming across flour is really quite disgusting. This is going to be a cream sauce, and most people, don't even realize that cream sauces or Alfredo type sauces actually are based on flour. And so now all my flour has absorbed evenly through the milk, and I'm just using the whisk quite aggressively to make sure if there are any flour lumps in here, that I break them apart with my whisk. And that sound you're hearing is the silicone ends of the whisk scraping on the bottom of the pot. And all I'm doing here is waiting for the flour to warm up a bit. I'm now going to add a pinch of salt. And pepper. So I just ground some in. You don't really need too much. You can always add more later. Can't take it out. And then a pinch of pepper here. Actually, I tend to use a lot of pepper because I really like the taste of pepper. The pepper mill I have is actually a Turkish coffee mill. We love it. And the final flavor is a paprika. This is not a smoked paprika, it's just a plain sweet paprika. And I'm putting in a little under 3/4 of a teaspoon. I just leveled it off on top there with divot. There we go. Just a tiny bit of paprika. And that's my sauce. If I wanted to make a larger quantity, I would add some chicken stock to it and make it a thinner sauce as well. But this makes quite a bit of sauce. And literally all I need to do now is just keep stirring this until it comes to a boil and thickens. There we go. And I'm just going to let this go for a bit and we'll come back and see how it's doing. So this has been cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes now. I've come back at least once a minute to stir and make sure it's not burning on the bottom of the pot. And it's just starting to thicken. It's nowhere near ready yet, but I just wanted you to take a look. You'll see that as I lift the whisk now, the whisk has some of the sauce sticking to it, and it's starting to feel like strangely like there's more garlic, and that's because the garlic is floating in a shallower pot as the milk starts to reduce. And we're still waiting for our pasta water to boil, and we'll come back when that happens. So we're still waiting here. Our pasta water is just about to boil, but I'd like to taste this a little bit. So I just have a spoon here, and I'm going to quickly dip it in and taste it. Good on the paprika, and a little bit more pepper and salt I think is needed. And now this spoon is going directly into the wash, because you don't cross-contaminate. Once it's been in your mouth, it doesn't go back in the pot. So from the taste there, I think I had probably only about 1/4 of the amount of salt I wanted, so I'm just going to grind a bunch more salt in here. I'm going to make the grind a little thicker. You want to make the sauce a little stronger than you think it should be, because of course the sauce is what flavoring the noodles. The noodles don't have that flavor on them themselves. And I'm going to put about the same amount of pepper as I put in before. And of course these are not measurements. I mean, I think if you really want to measure, you're probably going to put about a teaspoon of salt in and a teaspoon of pepper, and then work it from there, but it's all about the flavor. Okay. And I'm going to whisk that in. Now it smells much, much better. And I'm just going to grab another spoon here. Taste again. Okay, and here we go for a tasting. Ah, delicious. If you were putting cheese in this, you would put the cheese in now. Our favorite cheese to put in this is smoked Gouda. It really, really makes this sauce quite delicious and thick. Tonight, I did not prepare any Gouda, so we're not having Gouda. And I believe, since we're having spinach, I don't think the Gouda would go very well with it. So my pasta water is boiling now. I'm going to take my lid off and step away here. And we're going to put in a large package of Costco tortellini. I don't know what brand they are, but it's Costco size package. And I just need to make sure that I aim for the opening of my pasta pot here. Make sure I try and get them into the pot. And now just quickly scoop the ones that fell on the lid there in. There we go, come on, go into the water. Good, tortellinis, there we go. Okay, Google, set a timer for 2 minutes.
2 minutes, and we're starting now.
This is fresh pasta, it's not dry, it does not take long to cook at all. If the water is boiling, that will cook up really, really fast. I'm just going to take my whisk here and swirl it around in there, make sure they're not sticking together. Stop. All right, we have our 2-minute timer now. And I'm just going to go over to my bag of spinach here. This is pre-washed spinach, and I am just going to take 2 handfuls and put them into the pasta water. Still some on the floor. I think the dog will get that. That's if they eat spinach. There we go. And again, I'm just going to use my whisk. No need to dirty a new utensil, and push that spinach down into the water. And literally this only takes 30 seconds. And I am turning off the heat underneath the noodles. Giving my pasta sauce a stir here. All right, so now I'm going to just carry my pot here to the stove. Now, to remind those of you who haven't seen me record before for pasta, I have a pasta pot here with a half moon shape on the lid that's got holes in it, and I am literally just going to pour the water out through that section of the lid. It just pours away from me and gets all the water out of my pasta and spinach. Very steamy and quite delicious. And I'm just going to use my oven mitt here because the lid's very hot. Take it off. And I've taken as much of the water out as I can by pouring. And we'll go back to my sauce pot here. First of all, I need to check the sauce. All right, so I'm back at my sauce here, and the sauce isn't thick enough yet to add those noodles. Pasta cooked much faster than the sauce did. It is just about there though. If I take my whisk out, I can hear it starting to bubble. And the reason it's to take my whisk out is because as I'm stirring, the bubbles don't make as much noise. So our sauce is just thickening now. It's quite aggressively boiling and you don't want that. If it does that, you're going to need to turn the heat down or off if you can't stop it. All right, so our sauce has thickened up really nicely here. It's not quite as thick as I tend to like it, but some people would consider this sauce ready. And now all I'm going to do is pick up my pasta pot here, again with oven mitts because it's still very, very hot. And there's a tiny bit of water in there still, but there's our noodles and our spinach. And I am literally just dumping them into my sauce. And that's some of that liquid, maybe some spinach hitting the burner. And I'm just going to whisk this in. And let it sit. I'm turning off the burner and just letting it sit now to marinate. We'll probably eat this in about 20 or 30 minutes. Enjoy.